hushed history. Deep within the ancient, cracked earth of southern India, more than 1 billion years ago, a miracle of geology was forming under intense pressure and heat that would crush any living thing to dust. It was a deep, steely blue ember of carbon trapped in the dark, destined to eventually become the world's most famous and feared jewel. The story of the Hope Diamond truly begins in the Kolar mine in Golconda during the middle of the 17th century, a place of heat, dust, and shimmering hidden treasures. The stone was not always the refined, cushion-cut masterpiece we see today in the quiet halls of a museum. In its original raw state, it was a massive, triangular sapphire blue diamond weighing over 112 carats, looking more like a piece of fallen star than a simple rock. Legend says it was once the glowing eye of a sacred statue of the Hindu goddess Sita, watching over the faithful with a cold, eternal blue stare. When a desperate thief plucked the eye from the goddess, violating the sanctity of the temple, it is said a curse was born that would follow anyone who possessed the stone, clinging to them like a shadow that never fades. The first recorded Westerner to handle the diamond was a French gem merchant and daring traveler named Jean-Baptiste Tavernier. He purchased the stone around the year 1666, bringing it across oceans and deserts back to the glittering courts of Europe. Tavernier was a seasoned traveler who had seen the wonders of the world, but even he was mesmerized by the great blue diamond that seemed to glow with an inner, restless fire. He eventually sold the gem to King Louis XIV of France in the year 1668. king, a man obsessed with grandeur and his own divine right to rule, ordered his royal jeweler to recut the stone to enhance its brilliance and fit the royal aesthetic. The resulting gem was a 67 1/8 carat masterpiece known as the blue diamond of the crown of France, or simply the French blue. King Louis XIV wore it on a long golden ribbon around his neck during ceremonial occasions, a symbol of his absolute power over the land. For a time, it seemed the curse was merely a myth whispered by the superstitious in the dark corners of the palace. However, as the years turned into decades, the shadows were beginning to lengthen over the House of Bourbon in ways no one could have predicted. While the Sun King lived a long and powerful life, his later years were marred by the tragic deaths of almost all his legitimate children and grandchildren, leaving his legacy in a state of fragile uncertainty. The stone then passed to his successor, King Louis XV, who had the diamond set into a spectacular and intricate piece of jewelry for the Order of the Golden Fleece. It sat upon the chests of men who thought they were gods, unaware that the tides of history were turning against them. Then came the ill-fated King Louis XVI and his queen, the legendary Marie Antoinette. History tells us of their grim and violent end during the height of the French Revolution, where the monarchy was toppled by the rage of the people, and the guillotine became the final, sharp judge of kings. Some say the queen wore the diamond, and that its blue depth was the last beautiful thing she saw before the darkness took her. But before their execution, During the week of the great jewelry robbery in September of 1792, the French blue vanished into the night. The royal storehouse was looted while the city of Paris was in total chaos, with smoke filling the air and the sounds of revolution echoing through the streets. The diamond disappeared into the dark underbelly of the European criminal world, passing through the hands of those who knew its value but feared its name. For 20 long years, the stone remained hidden, its trail cold and its brilliance masked by the dust of secret cellars. Some say it was being cut into smaller pieces by trembling hands to hide its famous identity from the authorities. Others believe it was being held by secret societies, used as a talisman in rituals that have been forgotten by time. The silence was finally broken in the year 1812, just as a 20-year statute of limitations on the theft was set to expire, allowing the stone to emerge from the shadows without fear of legal reprisal. A blue diamond of 44.5 carats suddenly appeared in the records of a London diamond merchant named Daniel Eliasson. This was the same royal stone, but it had been reshaped yet again to mask its bloody and royal origins. The majestic French blue had been transformed into the oval gem we now recognize today. . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . The letter D and the letter E on the merchant's ledger marked its arrival in England, a simple notation for a stone that had already seen the fall of empires. curse, however, was patient, waiting in the quiet velvet of display cases for the next person brave or foolish enough to claim ownership of it. The weight of the stone was now recorded as 45.52 carats, but its history weighed much more than any scale could ever measure. The deep blue color caused by trace amounts of boron trap birth 1 billion years ago made it look like a piece of the midnight sky captured in glass. But when the lights go out and the stone is exposed to ultraviolet light, the diamond glows a shocking blood-red color. It is a chilling reminder of its violent past and the blood that has been shed in its presence. We sit now in the quiet, hushed corners of history, listening to the echoes of kings, queens, and thieves, all of whom thought they could own a piece of eternity for themselves. They did not realize until it was far too late that the stone was the one owning them, watching them, and waiting for the next chapter to begin. As the diamond sat in London, a new family was about to enter the story, one whose name would eventually be forever linked to the gem. The Hope family was wealthy, powerful, and unsuspecting of the darkness that was now crossing the English Channel to meet them. The velvet box was about to open once again, and the blue fire was ready to burn. The stone sat in the damp, foggy air of London, resting within the ledgers of the merchant Daniel Eliasson. The year was 1812. The world was at war as Napoleon marched across Europe, yet the diamond remained in a state of quiet, heavy suspension. It did not stay in the hands of the merchant for long. The allure of a stone that had survived the French Revolution was too great for the elite of British society to ignore. Eventually, it found its way into the private collection of King George IV. The king was a man of immense excess and staggering debt. He adored the blue diamond, viewing it as a trophy of his status, but his lifestyle was unsustainable. Upon his death in 1830, his vast and cluttered estate had to be sold off just to cover the mountain of bills he left behind. It was during this frantic sell-off that the gem was acquired by a man named Henry Philip Hope. He was a titan of banking, a man whose family name was synonymous with the most powerful financial institution in the Netherlands, the Hope and Company Bank. The letter H and the letter C on his stationery represented a dynasty that moved the wealth of nations. Henry was an obsessed collector of gems, and when he laid eyes on the 45.52 carat blue diamond, he knew it would be the centerpiece of his life's work. He purchased it for a sum that was never officially recorded, though whispers in the counting houses suggested it was enough to buy a small fleet of ships. From that moment on, the stone was no longer the French blue. It was known simply as the Hope diamond. Henry Philip Hope was a cautious man. He kept the diamond in a custom-made mahogany box, tucked away from the prying eyes of the public. He would often sit alone in his study, the only sound being the ticking of a grandfather clock and the soft clink of the key in the lock. He would hold the stone up to the flickering candlelight, watching the blue sparks dance across the dark wood of his desk. For several years, the curse seemed to be dormant, soothed perhaps by the immense wealth of the family. But the diamond is a patient predator. Henry died in 1839, leaving his fortune and his gems to his 3 nephews. The eldest, Henry Thomas Hope, inherited the blue stone. He was a man of high society and a member of Parliament, and he chose to display the diamond at the Great Exhibition in London in 1851. Thousands of people shuffled past the glass case, their breath fogging the windows as they stared at the blue fire. They did not see a cursed object. They saw the pinnacle of human achievement and colonial reach. The stone remained in the family for decades, passing eventually to Lord Francis Hope in 1887. Francis was a man of different temperament than his ancestors. He was a gambler, a man who chased the high of the betting tables and the thrill of the theater. He married an American actress named May Yo, and for a time they lived a life of glittering parties and transatlantic travel. The diamond was often seen pinned to her dress, shining like a cold star under the gaslight of London's high society. However, the weight of the stone began to pull on the family's foundations. Francis's luck at the tables turned sour. His debts began to pile up like a rising tide. He became desperate. In the year 1896, he was forced into bankruptcy. He spent the next 5 years in a bitter legal battle with his own family, begging the courts for permission to sell the diamond to save himself from total ruin. In 1901, the court finally relented. The Hope diamond was sold to a dealer in New York for $20,000. £29,000. The moment the stone left the hands of the Hope family, their downfall accelerated. Francis and May divorced shortly after. May would later claim that the diamond had ruined her life, eventually dying in poverty after a series of failed marriages and lost fortunes. The diamond was now a nomad, moving through the world of international jewelry brokers. It traveled to New York, then back to London, and eventually to the chaotic markets of Paris. It was here that it caught the eye of a jeweler named Pierre Cartier. Cartier was not just a craftsman, he was a master storyteller. He knew that to sell a diamond of this price, he didn't just need a buyer, he needed a legend. He began to research the dark history of the stone, polishing the stories of the stolen eye of the idol and the bloody end of Marie Antoinette. He was looking for a very specific kind of customer, someone with more money than fear. He found exactly what he was looking for in a wealthy American socialite named Evalyn Walsh McLean. Evalyn was the heiress to a massive mining fortune, a woman who believed that bad luck objects were actually good luck for her. The letter E and the letter M were monogrammed on everything she owned, from her silk robes to her private train cars. Cartier took the diamond to her hotel room in Paris, letting the blue stone sit on the nightstand as she slept. He knew that once she felt the pull of its history, she would never be able to let it go. The sale was finalized in 1911 for the staggering sum of $180,000. Evalyn took the diamond back to Washington, D.C., where she would host the most lavish parties in the city's history. She famously claimed that she was immune to the curse. She even had the stone blessed by a priest, believing that that she could tame the ancient blue fire. But as she sat in her mansion, the diamond glowing against her skin, the shadows were already gathering in the corners of her life. The stone had crossed the ocean, and it was hungry for a new legacy. The diamond had found its final private home in the grand estates of Washington, District of Columbia. Evalyn Walsh McLean was a woman of immense spirit who refused to be intimidated by the whispers of the past. She wore the stone constantly, often pinning it to the collar of her Great Dane, Mike, as if to show the world that the curse was nothing more than a ghost story for the weak. The letter E and the letter M remained synonymous with the height of American wealth during the Roaring Twenties. But the diamond is a cold observer of human life, and its patience is measured in centuries, not years. The darkness began to seep into the McLean household with a relentless, quiet force. First came the tragic death of her young son, Vincent, who was killed in a car accident at the age of 9. Then her daughter succumbed to an overdose at the age of 25. Her husband, Ned, once a powerful newspaper publisher, slowly lost his mind to the grip of alcoholism and eventually died in a mental institution. By the time Evalyn herself passed away in 1947, the family fortune had been eroded by legal battles and the crushing weight of grief. The diamond was left in a shoe box under her bed, a silent witness to the ruin of a dynasty. The estate was sold to settle her massive debts, and the stone was purchased by a man named Harry Winston. Winston was a legendary New York jeweler who saw the stone not as a curse, but as a national treasure. He toured the diamond across the country for 10 years, using its fame to raise millions of dollars for charity. It seemed that under his care, the stone's hunger for tragedy had finally been satisfied. In 1958, Winston decided that the diamond belonged to the people. In a move that stunned the world of high finance, he did not send the stone via armored truck or private guard. Instead, he wrapped the most valuable gem in the world in plain brown paper and sent it through the regular mail. The registered mail stamp cost $2.44. The letter S and the letter I on the Smithsonian Institution's intake form marked the end of the diamond's long, bloody journey through the hands of the elite. Today, the stone sits behind thick, shatterproof glass in the Janet Annenberg Hooker Hall of Geology. It is the most visited object in the Smithsonian, drawing millions of people who stand in hushed silence as the gem rotates slowly on its pedestal. The deep blue glow remains as vibrant as it was 1 billion years ago, undimmed by the passage of time or the deaths of its owners. When the museum lights are dimmed and the ultraviolet scanners pass over the stone, the diamond still flashes that eerie, phosphorescent blood red. It is a chemical reaction, scientists say, caused by the boron and nitrogen within the crystal lattice. But for those who know the history of the Tavernier Blue, the French blue, and the hope, it looks more like a heartbeat. The stone is now safe, held in a place where no one can truly own it, and therefore no one can be destroyed by it. It has transitioned from a weapon of misfortune into a monument of natural wonder. As we look back through the centuries, from the mines of India to the halls of Washington, we realize that the diamond was never really the one in danger. We were. echoes of hushed history always seem to linger a bit longer when they involve such beautiful, dangerous things. Perhaps as you sit in this quiet moment, you might feel inclined to join our growing circle of observers. If these stories resonate with you, you may find that choosing to like this video or subscribing to our channel ensures that the next deep dive into the shadows finds its way to you. It is a simple gesture, yet it keeps the fire of these histories burning just a little longer.